You'd have to be living under a rock to have not been inundated with endless images and commentary surrounding Ferguson, Missouri. So, how did a small-town crime story become the biggest race story in America and likely the world? Maybe the media had something to do with it, or maybe these guys had something to do with it. First, the president in D.C.
This is not a problem simply of Ferguson, Missouri. This is a problem that is national. What we need is a sustained conversation to hear young people feeling marginalized and distrustful even after they've done everything right. That's not who we are.
And just hours later, the Attorney General, Eric Holder, took the mic in Atlanta.
In the months since this incident occurred, it has sparked a significant national conversation about the need to ensure confidence in the law enforcement and criminal justice processes. The rifts that this tragedy exposed in Ferguson and elsewhere must be addressed.
So our president and our attorney general calling for Ferguson to open a national conversation about race sure looks like a planned rollout of a race debate from the White House. Let's not forget the words of former Obama Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel: "You never want a serious crisis go to waste." Bob, do you think this is a concerted effort by the White House to keep the race debate going?
No, I think it's the right thing to do, and the race debate has been going for a long time. It didn't begin with Ferguson, it's not going to end with Ferguson. And then what he pointed out here is that if you look at the Pew Research studies on college black men, their trust of the police department is somewhere in the teens. Now, there has to be a reason for that. These are educated people who looked, I suppose, at those grand jury findings. They don't trust the police. They don't trust white people, and they have a good reason not to.
Oh, that's terrible. What a racist statement to make.
What is racist about that?
What you do is
you haven't been on the other side where they've been sitting on top of race.
Great. You know what? And all you do is badmouth and put down anybody who's white. You don't ever look into what anybody's done with their actions, and you're making these
I did not. I said they. I tried to make some offensive statements to you that you could finally understand.
No,
I said black men do not trust.
I'm a Latina woman. You're a white man.
If you do surveys of black and college-educated men, well, wait a minute. Are you denying the facts?
I just don't understand. Even people, anyone who's getting an education, why do you limit people by always labeling them by their skin color? Be broader, be bigger than that.
Because black men have a distrust of the system.
I mean, my goodness.
You don't think they have a distrust of the system?
It's just a constant crucifixion from you.
All right, so let's bring it on this. Is it smart for the White House, President Obama, Eric Holder? They're clearly keeping the debate alive by, almost a coordinated two hitting the microphone at the same time, keeping the debate up. Why would they do that?
Here's the problem. Either you're part of the problem or you steer clear of it, because it seems to me whenever you try to get involved in the conversation, you're going to be wrong. You just saw that here. That if you have any kind of opinion that goes counter to, I think, the liberal conventional wisdom that blacks cannot trust cops, if you come at that from any other angle, even if you were black,
Greg, I got to interrupt you. I never said that.
You just said that.
I did not say that.
Yes, you did.
I said black men have a distrust of the system.
All right. Okay, I think that's what I said. Could this distrust be part of 40 years of pop culture instructing young black men not to trust the police, even though the police are there in their communities trying to prevent blacks from killing other blacks, the same thing that Giuliani said? My point is this. You cannot have a national dialogue if the people that you disagree with you consider to be part of the problem. Here's the media math. If it's a black person committing a crime on a white person, that is a crime. If it is a white person committing a crime on a black person, it's race, because generally that might be a cop. So it's not a two-way street, and whenever there is a debate, it's the other side that is seen as racist, and that kills the debate.
Brings up a very good question. Can black people be considered racist? And you will hear some of the most racist things coming out of black men, Al Sharpton, you'll hear it, but they're never considered or called racist. If you were to take the other side, the exact opposite commentary from a white man or a white woman, they would clearly be called racist. They may even be thrown off TV.
It's part of the idea that the history that blacks have gone through, they are incapable of being accused of racism because of the injustice that they have experienced. That's why.
Dana, the White House, coordinated, not coordinated. How about this? They lost the midterms miserably. Ferguson started before the midterms. They had this race debate going before the midterms. Smart to continue the race debate after the midterms?
I think I think the White House is just dealing with what the news cycle is. I think it makes sense for both of them to talk about it today because it's still on the front pages of the news. And sometimes it takes a White House a couple of days to think of the strategy. The president just spoke about it yesterday, so he's talking about it again today. I don't think that they're trying anything other than to deal with the news of the day. The part of the problem is a big story of the day on that deals for everybody of low income, white or black, is the front story of the Wall Street Journal today, which talks about the economic costs of the last 6 years, of how much prices have gone up for across the board, including on healthcare and electricity, how people aren't doing better. I think that the problem I have of talking about this is that the solidarity with Michael Brown would be more understandable if it was based on events that actually happened. The solidarity is currently being based on events that did not happen, and so you cannot have a conversation with people who have a different fact.
On a false truth.
Hang on, this is an absolute perfect transition to this. Hands up, don't shoot has become the metaphor, as Dana points out, for racial tension in America, thanks to race baiters like Al Sharpton and the new Black Panther Party. Check out how the pro-race lobby is ratcheting up the rhetoric now.
The Ferguson grand jury's decision not to indict former Officer Darren Wilson was yet another slap in our face. It was a painful reminder that just like with Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice and so many others, that law enforcement officers kill our black and brown men and boys without repercussions.
The fact is that for 3.5 months, this was no jury of substance, no jury of integrity, no real American. This was a hangman's noose.
Let's stay with Dana right. A hangman's noose from the Reverend. But that's what we see. We see the ratcheting up of the rhetoric as time goes forward.
For desperation to keep the story going. I think that is deeply irresponsible and a disgrace. It's like when in politics, when you call someone a liar, there's really nowhere to go from there. Or if you say someone is a Nazi, no one should bring up the Holocaust. If you just look at the facts of the situation, like I like to do, and not the emotional side, I'm not saying that there aren't grievances. And I think that the president, when he proposed the cameras where cops, and that might be a good investment, that's great. But if that type of video evidence is going to be important into a discussion like this, then surely the video evidence of what happened before the shooting in the Michael Brown case should be admissible as well.
Can I try this one? Can I try this just one more time? I made one statement, which was, in the black community, young black men do not trust authority and they do not trust police. Why that is, whether it's fair or not, whether it's accurate or not, is not the issue.
No, actually, you actually said, and they have every reason not to.
I was about to say that. Let me finish that.
And all white people.
And all white people. That was all white people?
You also said.
I said people in authority.
Yes or no?
I said people in authority.
It was inartfully said, anyway.
Okay, so it was inartfully said, but it gets back to the point that I do not believe that they have a great deal of trust, and I think there's a lot of reason for it, period.
I think, I think they don't have a lot of trust, but why is that? If you have, I don't know, if half of the homicides are committed by blacks and they're 13% of the population, the police officers have to go to that community and they have to deal with it. So they're already in an interesting position where they are the authority and they are trying to reduce crime. And however, there are people there that don't want them there, and there are people that are so grateful, and they're all black, that are grateful that they are there. If you look at people like Al Sharpton, my theory is that they're holding politicians captive. If you don't kiss Sharpton's ring, he will foment violence. Right now, we've got a chokehold case in New York City that is going to be coming up. It could get ugly. So what are you going to do? Eric Holder, to paraphrase, is we are cowards when it comes to race baiting. We won't talk to the race baiters and call them on their bluff.
But where were President Obama and Eric Holder? You remember the knockout game? There's predominantly black youths going around punching white people, knocking them out, unsuspecting. There wasn't race summits coming from the White House regarding that. KG, my son knows better than to do this. However, if he knocked off a convenience store and then punched a cop in the face,
and then tried to take his gun?
And then tried to take his gun and get shot, and the cop happens to be black, I guarantee you I'm not out here saying he was shot because that cop was a racist.
Of course not, because that wouldn't make sense. And this whole thing is based on a false narrative. This hands up, don't shoot has been disproved because the individual that said it retracted it in the grand jury. That was a lie. So I don't know why these people are running around. They're making themselves look ignorant because they're repeating something that has been proved to be false. So why are they doing this? And I'll tell you what, Eric Holder didn't do any favors to Ferguson because he helped foment this with his rhetoric and putting attention. Why are they not, as two lawyers, President Obama and Eric Holder, respecting the rule of law and the decision of the people that presided over this in the grand jury?
Among black young men in Ferguson, you're right about Obama and Holder, I suppose, but they simply do not believe it.
Bob, rather than hands up, don't
those
shoot.
grand juries are stacked.
Bob,
They just do. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, you guys, you live in La La Land if you don't believe that. But if you don't believe these people feel that way, at least accept the fact they feel that.
No, but I'm saying,
I believe that. I believe that. However, you cannot have a discussion with leaders if they're refusing to listen to solutions.
That's correct.
And
can I add one quick solution, Dan, and you address this? The highest dropout rate among any race, blacks, 32% across the board, almost double the white dropout rate. Rather than hands up, two hands up, how about one hand up in a classroom? That metaphor that you just showed, they showed it, that came from, those are 3 Congressional Black Caucus leaders on the floor of the House today with the hands up. Why?
Maybe
this is help.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason is that national conversations tend to have a short shelf life. After the shooting at the school in Connecticut, in Sandy Hook, we were going to have a sustained national conversation about mental health problems in this country. It lasted for about 3 weeks. There's been some good legislation introduced by, I believe, Congressman Tim Murphy of Pennsylvania. I don't think it's gone anywhere. And that conversation ebbs and flows. In this situation, the solutions that were put forward so far are all changes that are supposed to come from the police. That they are supposed to be better trained, supposed to have better equipment. There's no national conversation about the root cause that actually would be, I think, a helpful one to have, but I think you're going to have to wait till the next presidential election for that actually to emerge because this situation is toxic.
Part of the answer is decidedly inferior schools for black children.
Yeah. They're public schools.
I know, but they're inferior, and the teachers' unions have no right to be complaining about it.
Let's get this in here. We've been talking a lot about what in the aftermath of Ferguson, what's been good, what's been bad, what's causing racial tension. Listen to Bill O'Reilly.
The protesters who did not loot or burn or assault the police, but who remained in the fray, are guilty of aiding and abetting those who did by providing them cover and support. The mob also did something else. It set back race relations in America years.
So, KG, paraphrasing, Bill O'Reilly saying the protests are what's really setting back race relations in America.
Well, it is, again, because it's based on a false narrative. It's based on a set of facts and circumstances that actually didn't occur. And it's upsetting to me that police officers that go out there every night and put their life on the line, the only way this kind of mob mentality is going to be satisfied if that cop came home in a pine box instead. Which means you can commit multiple felonies, you can be high on drugs, and you can go and assault a police officer and beat up a store clerk and then go and take a cop's gun, and you're still the one that's okay. You're still the victim.
I don't think what Mr. O'Reilly was condemning protest. I think what he was talking about are the radicals that are piggybacking on sincere distress, that there are people out there that legitimately feel wrong, but there are people that are egging it on for the sake of a violent revolution, and they've signaled their submission that they're not going to get hurt because they're bloggers and they're activists. They don't own businesses. But to the point, we know that blacks kill blacks, and we know that whites kill whites. But there are shopkeepers in their neighborhoods that are Koreans, and they're Serbians, and they're Indians, and they're Arabic. So it's not really just about race. It's actually about proximity. It's the people that are brave enough to stay in these communities as these communities fall apart. And as their citizens leave to go to safer places, it's the immigrants who stay in these communities and start businesses. And I always go back, it's like, this is why I keep thinking yes to amnesty, because it really is a Homestead Act. Let these people come in and rebuild these cities. And if they can do it, they get citizenship. And we should expand this awareness of victimhood. No, there are all types of victims of violence. They are not just blacks. They are not just whites. They are Rashid Kablah. He was killed in a Miami drugstore on Thanksgiving bagging groceries. He had a pregnant wife. He got shot. We should be Googling and posting those stories of those people getting killed and sending them to your leaders and letting them know that there are all kinds of victims of violence, and they are Americans.
The
Can I just comment on O'Reilly's comments? I actually thought that when I saw it last night, I thought it was an overreaction. I think that it's important that people who are looking at the facts not overreact, because it is a fairly small minority of people that are trying to foment the situation, but that small minority is getting the lion's share of the attention. So like the Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons of the world, most people actually have definitely advanced and evolved, and we were taught differently by our parents, and we think differently, and that's why we think passionately about it. It's why one of the worst things you can be called is a racist. That's why it stings so much.
I apologize.
So I actually think that overreacting is something we have to make sure that we don't.
And that was overreacting on his part. But beyond that, when Gal did, the people who showed up at those things were professional race rioters.
Right.
85% of the people in Ferguson stayed home and did not go out and cause this problem.
Right.
They
True.
they do not use drugs, they don't have to, but 90% of them do not trust the police establishment.
All right, well,
what does that tell
before you start that conversation again.
Well, you don't want to start it because why don't you start it?
You don't listen to the other
Because
side.
you know what? Because he just made that number up. How about that?
Let's get out of here.
I'll wedge you your Hampton House on that one.